In this video we're going to take a look at Sparta, which is a Python GUI application which will help penetration testers during the scanning and enumeration phase. So essentially this provides a nice interface and a way to combine different tools and manage hosts in a penetration test. So you can see here it says if little time is spent setting up commands and tools, more time can be spent focusing on analysing the results. It also lets us know that the tool is fully customizable, as each tester has their own methods. So if you're running an old version of Kali, you might have it installed, but 2020 onwards doesn't have it installed. So in that case, you'll need to install some of these packages if you don't have them already, which you probably don't. So make sure these are all installed. You can see I've got them installed already, and then we need to download the Git repo. So we'll go to user share, and then we'll git clone this. You'll also need to run that with sudo as well if you're doing this in user share. And then finally, we want to place Sparta file in user bin, so we can copy Sparta to user bin. We're also going to need sudo there as well, and make it executable. So you can do sudo chmod +x Sparta user bin Sparta. And now we should be able to run it. So let's just try and run Sparta. And you can see it's opened up the interface for us as we would hope. So I'm currently running this in VirtualBox. This is the Parrot OS. You might be running Kali Linux or something similar. I also have Metasploitable 3, the Ubuntu VM running, and Metasploitable 3, the Windows 2K 2008 server running. So this is all just inside VirtualBox. I normally use VMware, but just because there were some problems using Metasploitable in there, and I just want to test this with a couple of different hosts inside of Sparta and see what happens. So we're able to list our hosts by clicking here on the left and then entering in some IP addresses. We can either give it a range, so we might want to go and run ifconfig and see what network we're on. In this case it's the 10.10.10 range, and we might want to scan the whole network. So we could do from 0 to 255, or we could do 0 over 24. That'll do the exact same thing. I did find this was quite slow to scan the whole network, so instead I'm going to manually specify some IP addresses. We'll go and do a quick nmap scan just to identify which hosts are up and running and what their IP addresses are. And then you can see that whenever we specify our IP addresses, we have the option: do we want to run host discovery, and do we want to run a staged nmap scan. So if we choose to run a staged nmap scan, it'll run the scanning stages. So presumably it's going to go through the more common ports first of all, and just run with some faster options, so maybe not enumerating all the services initially, etc. So let's go, and first of all I'm just going to go back and run nmap-sn 10.10.10, and I'm going to run that over the full IP range. And this is just a really quick scan just to let us know which hosts are up. And you can see here we have 5, 6 and 7, and we are 7. So let's try and do 5 and 6. Presumably they're going to be our two Metasploitable machines. I'm going to go back here. I'm just going to set this to 5-6. We'll add those to the scope, and that will start running the nmap scan. Okay, so you can see that we have both hosts showing up here now. It's run the first stage nmap scan and the second is beginning, and you can see that it's identified that port 80 is open, the TCP port, that's our HTTP port, and it started automatically running Nikto on that as well. You can see that it's also identified now an FTP service which is up, so it's going to start running presumably some tools on that. And as we go through now, we can go and have a look at some information. You can see here we have a screenshot. It's attempted to get a screenshot of the HTTP. I'm not exactly sure what's supposed to be there. Nikto has come back to tell us some information about the web server that's running. We have our FTP here, so it's actually using Hydra to try and crack it by the looks of it, although I guess it didn't. Maybe we need to specify a username and a password list before it's, or there was 10 login tries there. Maybe it had just a list of 10 usernames and passwords to try. And then we have Nikto running for port 8080 as well, which was also found. which has actually identified some vulnerabilities by the looks of it, and then a screenshot for port 8080 as well. You can see here, if we go back to our services now, it's actually identified the services and the versions. You can see here we have this sun glassfish, and then if we right click on any one of these services, we could get some different options up as well. So we might want to run dirbuster to try and see what directories are there. In some cases we might want to, let's open this up in the browser and have a look at it. You can see that's opened this page up in the browser. We could, let's have a look at the FTP. So you can see here FTP, we might want to try and connect with an FTP client. We have our SSH, so presumably we can try and SSH into that. We can send it to brute force. So this is basically combining a few different tools for us and automating some of the process. So if you're in a rush, maybe you're doing a CTF or something, and you want to just have some things automatically running in the background while you're poking around manually, something like this might be a good option and useful for keeping track of hosts as well. You can see we have a notes section here as well, so we can just go and add in some of our own notes. And as time goes on, because we have the staged nmap scan, it's coming back with quite a few additional ports because we have these metasploitable hosts running. They have a lot of different services running which are vulnerable, so these might be some good hosts to test out. You could also go and take a look at some Hack the Box and Try Hack Me machines, or download some vulnerable VMs off VulnHub. But you can see there's quite a lot of services here to be getting on with in terms of things to try and exploit.